Embarking on a journey into the realm of four-dimensional thinking means accepting the challenge of crossing a threshold that separates the usual, limited, and linear vision of reality from a horizon where consciousness reveals itself to be not merely an observer, but the generative matrix of reality itself. The universe we believe we know, marked by rigid coordinates of past, present, and future, is merely a perceptual convention, a mental grid inherited from millennia of conditioning and perpetuated by power structures that have sought to conceal the true multidimensional nature of human beings. Here we are not faced with a mere philosophical reflection, but rather an initiatory invitation to dismantle the scaffolding of the ordinary mind to allow a radically different way of conceiving existence to emerge. The most ancient wisdom traditions, from the Egyptian mysteries to the Hermetic currents, from the Vedic texts to the Pythagorean schools, have consistently affirmed that reality is not a fixed container, but a continuous flow of malleable energies. Quantum science and the most recent neuroscientific research merely confirm what the masters had already intuited. Consciousness is not a consequence of the brain, but rather the primary principle that gives form and direction to becoming. In this space of expanded understanding, time no longer appears as an ineluctable succession, but as a fluid fabric in which every instant is simultaneously root and fruit, cause and effect, seed and fulfillment. Exploring four-dimensional thought, then, means restoring the mind to its creative function, recognizing that every thought is architecture, every emotion is language, every vibration is an act of construction. It means learning to dance with the secret rhythm of the cosmos, ceasing to perceive ourselves as isolated entities and beginning to recognize ourselves as nodes in a single vibrational web. It is a journey that requires courage, as it involves abandoning established certainties and entering a territory where ordinary maps no longer apply. But it is precisely there that true freedom begins, in understanding that we are not cogs in a pre-established mechanism, but rather divine sparks called to forge, with intention and awareness, our own trajectory of existence. If you feel these words have resonated deeply with you, let your response not remain silent. Give this video a like so that this vibration can spread and reach other like-minded souls. And if you sense that your journey requires constant nourishment, I invite you to consider subscribing to the channel. Not a superficial gesture, but an act of conscious participation, a seed that allows this space of knowledge to continue generating valuable content and accompanying those who, like you, seek beyond appearances. By doing so, you don't simply enter a virtual community, but contribute to the formation of a circle of awakened consciousnesses who, by intertwining their intentions, create a vibrational field capable of transforming the collective reality. It's no coincidence that, despite every attempt at external change, changing habits, moving to new cities, the feeling of repeating an existence marked by the same emptiness, the same apprehension, the same exhaustion persists. This persistence is not accidental, but rather the result of a preconceived plan. We've been instilled with a linear mode of thought, a narrow paradigm that intrinsically conflicts with the nature of our psyche, which was designed to reflect the dimensional multiplicity of the universe. This crucial discernment has been intentionally withheld from us, since an entity bound to three-dimensional cognition proves easily manipulated and controlled. And it is for this reason that, despite fulfilling every precept with scrupulousness and dedication, we feel hindered, prisoners of an apparent immobility. However, the time of awakening has arrived. Today we will regain the memory of what has been hidden. We will understand the intrinsic dissonance between our consciousness and the dominant logics of the world. We will witness an exposition of how Thoth, a preeminent figure of antiquity, employed fourth-dimensional thinking to transfigure his own reality, and how we too can emulate this feat. This is not a theoretical elaboration, but a practical manual. At the culmination of this discussion, an arcane vibrational technique, passed down by Thoth himself, will be revealed, the application of which is destined to usher in a radical metamorphosis in your existence, beginning this very moment. Therefore, you are invited to take a deep breath, for the dawn of awakening has already broken. Separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the dense, delicately and with great skill. Ascend from earth to heaven and then descend again to earth, and receive the power of things superior and inferior. This Hermetic aphorism summarizes the essence of a lost, but now accessible, knowledge. The most remote civilizations, possessors of profound wisdom, never conformed to a linear view of time, for they had already understood its true structure, spiraling and cyclical. And it is here that the perspective radically transforms. In contrast to the Cartesian and Newtonian conception, which reifies time in a straight line extending from birth to death, pre-scientific cultures perceived it as a living, vibrant field, intrinsically intelligent, a fabric where every event coexists, differing only in frequency. The Maya, for example, contemplated time as a spiral. Each cycle was not a mere repetition, but a reactivation. The same point of experience manifested itself again, but at a higher level of consciousness. They understood that time possessed an intrinsic memory, that it folded back on itself, and that each moment held within itself all the others. There was no absolute before or after, but rather layers of experience accessible through vibration. The Egyptians, though using different terminology, also hinted at this same understanding. For them, time was a state of consciousness, called duat, not a physical place, but an ethereal plane where past and future coexisted in timeless harmony. This conception was not a mere act of faith, but empirical knowledge. In the ceremonies officiated by the priests of Thoth, time was manipulated through the use of sound, sacred geometry, and focused intention. Their intent was not to predict the future, but to align with it, for by accessing the appropriate consciousness, time bends and conforms to the enlightened will. The Corpus Hermeticum, a compendium of Hermetic wisdom, clearly and profoundly articulates a similar principle. Time is a reflection of eternity, its projection onto matter. This implies that the reality we currently experience is similar to a distorted shadow of a much larger field, where every potential is already manifest, albeit in a subtle and latent form. Whoever learns to resonate with this field acquires the ability to reshape the shadow, that is, their own phenomenal reality. It is for this reason that shamans from various cultures immerse themselves in altered states of consciousness. They were aware that the time of nature did not coincide with the time of the ordinary mind. The jaguar, the roar of thunder, the majestic flight of the eagle, all these were interpreted as a language of time, unmistakable signs of a reality where time does not flow linearly, but pulsates, expands, and contracts. And here's something few have grasped. These ancient civilizations didn't consider time as an inexorable sequence of events, but rather as a responsive entity, a force that, interacting with consciousness, was capable of transfiguring everything. If time isn't a line that drags us inexorably along, then we aren't passive spectators, but active navigators in its flow. This confers immense power, a power that has been taken from us. The moment we understand that time is a field, we stop frantically chasing events and begin to tune into them. You free yourself from the slavery of the clock, age, pressing deadlines, and haste, factors that fuel a system based on anxiety and dependency. Isn't it clear that nearly every commercial offering today is imbued with a pressing urgency? Products that promise to increase our free time, methodologies to optimize every moment, gurus who warn us about accumulated delay, all contribute to building a machine that forces us into a perpetual race, a never-ending motion. This illusion of a rectilinear timeline imprisons us in the logic of scarcity. Lack of time, lack of financial resources, lack of opportunity, lack of youth. And the more we adhere to this belief, the more we disconnect from our authentic field of creation, which exists solely in the expanded present, where time manifests itself in a spiral and we are its pulsating fulcrum. This wisdom was universally held in ancient cultures, but in the modern era it has disappeared, and this oblivion is no accident. This invaluable knowledge has been stolen from us, and the reason for this deprivation is more profound and serious than we can imagine. The disconnection has been deliberately programmed. We are not disconnected by fate, but by an intentional design, systematically crafted to induce us to perceive a separation from ourselves, as if some anomaly resided within us, as if the problem were our distraction, our lack of discipline, our intrinsic confusion. But the truth is quite different. The problem lies in the conditioning we've received from an early age, an education designed to imprison our thoughts within a predefined model. A model that, by its very nature, doesn't adapt to the vastness of our consciousness. This preconceived pattern has a name: the the prison of time. And the structure that supports this prison isn't composed of physical walls, but rather of repetitive thoughts, programmed ideas, and emotional patterns that are endlessly recycled, taking on the aura of absolute truth. You have to hurry, you're late, it should have happened sooner, time is running out. Phrases that, while seemingly innocuous and familiar, keep us in a constant state of alert, under unrelenting pressure, perpetually indebted to a future that never arrives. The reason for this dynamic is obvious. Guilt and fear are the fuel that fuels this mechanism. Guilt for what has happened, fear for what has yet to happen. Two forces that, according to spiritual alchemy, are like heavy metals in the subtle body, impurities that obstruct the vital flow of the soul. And the more one identifies with them, the more one obliterates one's true essence. Thoth was categorical in stating, "Only through the purification of the mind can man be freed from the chains of time." Chains, that's the appropriate word, because time, in its conventional perception, is not neutral. It has been transformed into a vibrational prison. And as long as we remain trapped in that restrictive frequency, no authentic transformation can occur. Routines, environments, and goals can be changed, but if our thinking persists in the same linear logic, the feeling of emptiness inexorably resurfaces. This emptiness is the unmistakable symptom of a mind operating below its intrinsic natural power. This pattern of thought has been reinforced for centuries by structures that feed on our disconnection, not out of malicious intent, but out of calculated self-interest. A being connected to real time, to the time of the spirit, requires no external authorization, does not conform to imposed schedules, does not live in scarcity, and this terrifies those who draw nourishment from our dependence. It is for this reason that ancestral teachings were hidden, burned, distorted. The Emerald Tablets, the Gnostic texts, the Dead Sea Scrolls, all reveal the eternal nature of the human being. However, this view was replaced by a doctrine of submission, the idea that one was born imperfect, that one needed to be saved, that one had to await redemption from outside. All of this reinforces the same foundation, keeping us outside of real time, and when we are disconnected from authentic time, we lose synchronicity, we begin to act in dissonance with the intrinsic rhythm of the universe, we go against the grain of our own essence. And then the signs manifest. Chronic anxiety, insomnia, the perception of a perpetual race, never reaching our destination. The mind accelerates dizzyingly, but without a precise direction. The soul yearns to progress, but something holds it back. This phenomenon occurs when consciousness yearns for expansion, but the mind is trapped in the old script. This script is pervasive. It nests in educational systems that, rather than educate, condition. In religions that, rather than liberate, instill guilt. In family cycles that, rather than heal, merely perpetuate dysfunctional patterns. And we, at the center of all this, begin to doubt our own intuition, believing we are the problem. But that's not the case. We're simply trying to live in a format that no longer fits our consciousness, and this effort wears us down. This is because, when the spirit yearns for growth but the mind is blocked by linear patterns, the body begins to show signs of distress. Sadness surfaces, boredom intensifies, creativity dies, and we feel like spectators of our own existence. All this happens not because we're disconnected, but because our connection has been sabotaged. The good news is that this sabotage isn't irreversible. No matter how hard they've tried to disconnect us, an inextinguishable force resides within us. A silent spark that sometimes whispers, sometimes screams, sometimes manifests as a premonitory dream, a meaningful coincidence, an irresistible urge to transfigure everything. And it's in these moments that the system cracks, because the call comes, and when it manifests, it can't be ignored. You can feel it physically. An inexplicable thrill, an internal turmoil before an event, a strange sensation of having already lived a moment even though you haven't. You dream of a person and the next day you meet them. You think of something and suddenly they appear before you. Coincidence? No. It's consciousness manifesting, our deepest essence trying to reveal to us that time isn't as rigid as it seems. A part of us already knows what's about to happen, because in a certain sense it's already experienced it. And when that essence connects to our current reality, it sends signals, fragments, points of light that filter through the cracks of programming. And that's why we feel what we feel. In Hermeticism, this concept is clearly stated. Time is a sensory illusion, as the Kybalion states. The ordinary mind lives in a linear fashion, but higher consciousness, what the ancients call the inner self, the divine self, or the multidimensional self, operates outside of that linearity. It moves like a mirror that reflects all versions of us simultaneously. Those who have already fallen, those who have already triumphed, those who have already liberated themselves. And when one of these versions touches our current awareness, something awakens. This is why déjà vu occurs, why certain dreams seem more real than the following day, why we have intuitions that seem illogical but turn out to be accurate. It's not delirium, it's not nonsense, it's vibrational memory. Thoth explained it by saying that man lives on multiple planes simultaneously. While our conscious mind focuses on the present, our spiritual field extends across dimensions where time is not chronological, but vibrational, and this completely changes the way we interpret reality. Because suddenly it's no longer a matter of predicting the future, but of remembering it. Time doesn't necessarily have to move forward. It can rotate, it can bend, it can collapse into moments that seem insignificant but contain decades of meaning. And this happens every time our field resonates with something that already exists on another frequency. It's as if we were receiving letters from ourselves, signs from our own journey. And this type of internal communication doesn't have a rational language. It speaks through sensations. This is why so many people ignore it, expecting the answer to come in the form of a finished sentence. Instead, it manifests as a shiver, as silence, as an inexplicable certainty. You've experienced it all before. That intuition that can't be explained but that dissuades you from a certain path. That yes uttered without thinking. That pause that emerges from nowhere. All of this represents your higher layers attempting to establish contact with your current consciousness. And when that contact occurs, logic breaks down, because it's not logic, but vibration. Yes, you can try to resist it, you can ignore it, you can continue to follow the plan drawn up according to the rules you've learned, but at a certain point, that part of you will return, it will nudge you again, it will keep pushing until you realize that something greater is trying to emerge, and perhaps that something is you. This communication between the layers is what esoteric schools call the voice of spirit. It is subtle but firm, it is gentle but persistent. And the more you try to ignore it, the more the universe begins to show you what you've been avoiding, not as a punishment, but as a reminder. A reminder to abandon mechanical time, to abandon the illusion that everything needs to be explained, to accept that we are much more than this body, this mind, this story. Because if you feel the call, it means you are already ready to cross the veil. For D, thinking is not a metaphor, it's a practice. What if you could do this intentionally and not just when it happens by chance? You can, and this is where 4D thinking stops being a nice idea and becomes a real tool. It's not a metaphor or a figure of speech, it's practical. It's spiritual technology applied to your consciousness. Consider carefully. If your mind has the ability to access fragments of the future, to perceive echoes of the past, and to sense realities yet unmanifested, why would this happen if everything were immutable, predetermined, rigid? The answer is simple. It isn't. Your mind is an instrument of interference. It doesn't simply observe, but shapes reality. This concept was taught by Thoth millennia ago. In Plate 4, he reveals that the universe responds to the movement of the mind. This implies that thought is not a product of reality, but a lever that moves the fabric of reality itself. What you think, feel, and believe emits a frequency, and that frequency changes the settings of the field you are accessing. The field doesn't respond to your desire, it responds to your vibrational coherence. Modern science, though still reluctant to fully accept such concepts, has begun to provide concrete evidence. Neuroplasticity has demonstrated that the brain can physically reconfigure itself based on recurring thoughts. Synapses reorganize, and brain areas expand or contract, depending on the mental content you feed on. This means that your mind shapes your body. But it doesn't stop there. Epigenetics has revealed that even your genes respond to your emotional environment. Emotions like anger, fear, and chronic resentment alter genetic expression. It's as if your entire organism were a living canvas that reacts to your vibrations. Now, imagine that once upon a time a wise old man in a remote village, sitting by the fire, told children the story of a lost, synchronic book. It was a circular object, engraved with mysterious symbols, that measured not linear time but the resonance of events. Anyone, the sage said, who learned to read it would understand that life is not a sequence of coincidences, but a symphony of synchronicity, where each note resonates with the others, creating harmony or dissonance depending on one's own internal vibration. That's synchronary, he explained. It wasn't a watch, but a mirror of the soul, reflecting the coherence between desire and being. This is the moral of the story. Imagine not only your physical body but the reality around you behaving the same way. This is 4D thinking. Thinking in 4D means ceasing to view time as a mere line and beginning to perceive it as a field of response, a field of possibility, a field of creation. When you think with depth, presence, and authentic emotion, you emit an energetic signature, and this signature resonates in the surrounding field and creates collision points with possibilities vibrating at the same frequency. This is not merely an abstract philosophy. It is the real field, the intrinsic structure of reality. The ordinary mind believes that creating reality requires strenuous effort, that one must act, toil, and endlessly repeat affirmations. But the field does not move with effort. It moves with an aligned vibration. And that is why sometimes you think of someone, and that person manifests. You feel something strongly, and a sign appears. Because at that moment, you have collapsed layers, and you have vibrated outside the line. And this happens all the time. But most people don't notice it. They think it was a coincidence, luck, intuition. While in reality, it was an authentic frequency emission, which caused a shift in the field. Mental alchemy works with precisely this ability. That of transmuting vibrational patterns through the mind. It's not about thinking positively, but about thinking consciously. You can emit a vibration of lack while desiring abundance. You can desire love, and yet emit rejection. The field doesn't respond to what you want, but to what you are at the precise moment of emission. And this is why many people claim to think positively but nothing changes. Because thought without a body, without presence, without coherence produces no change. But thinking in 4D is different. Thinking in 4D means thinking with unified vibration, intention, and emotion. It means knowing that you are programming invisible layers that will collapse in the future. And the most amazing part of all this is that this emission not only affects what is about to happen, but also resonates with what has already happened. Because the temporal field doesn't separate the past from the future, it reads frequencies. And if an old frequency is still active, it continues to produce results in the present. But this also means that if you change your vibration now, you alter the way the past affects you. Yes, even the past reacts to what you think now. And this is exactly where change begins, when we understand that it is possible to rewrite the impact of a wound even without changing what happened. Because even if we cannot change the facts, we can alter the vibration they have left within us. And this changes everything. This is true alchemy, not the mystical alchemy of folklore, but true internal alchemy, the one Thoth taught long before science existed. Transforming lead into gold has never been about the metal. It has always been about consciousness. Lead is the trauma, the pain, the guilt we carry like a silent burden in our bodies. Gold is clarity, it is release, it is the frequency that emerges when we transpose that pain into wisdom. And this process does not require returning to the past. It requires entering the present with such intensity that the old vibration simply can no longer sustain itself. Thoth's Tablet 9 makes it clear: free the past through sound, light, and word. 3 tools, 3 keys. Sounds that vibrate through the body and reprogram memory. Light that penetrates the subtle layers of the mind and reveals what was hidden. And the word spoken with intention that alters emotional circuits. This is why when you talk about a trauma in a new way, something shifts. When you take a firm stance in front of a memory, even if it continues to hurt, you begin to reprogram the vibrational charge it carries. because the trauma is not stuck in time, it is stuck in the body, in the field. And when you change the vibration, the field responds and the past loses strength. Neuroscience proves it. Studies show that the brain reconstructs memories every time we recall them. In other words, every memory is an addition. And if you access that memory with a new emotion, it is updated, not in facts, but in vibration. And it is that vibration that creates your reality now. So think, how many situations do you silently relive every day? How many memories do you carry as if they were still happening? The rejection, the humiliation, the abandonment, the guilt, the fear, all of this continues to pulsate. Not because it happened, but because you continue to vibrate the same way when you remember it. And here is the Thoth key. Vibrational transmutation doesn't happen through positive thinking. It happens when you look at what happened with a different frequency, when you can remember it without becoming rigid, when you allow yourself to feel but without drowning in it, when you breathe through the internal chaos and say, "This happened, but it doesn't define me." In that moment, the lead begins to dissolve and the gold begins to emerge. This process is real and immediate. It doesn't require years of therapy. It doesn't require figuring everything out. It requires presence, it requires truth, and it requires conscious intention. And the more you practice it, the more you begin to realize that the story that holds you captive has already lost its power, that the scene, which once hurt, no longer stings in the same way, that the image of pain begins to change color, because the vibration is no longer the same, and when the vibration shifts, the past ceases to control you. This is why people who meditate deeply report healing old traumas. This is why vibrational techniques like sound, breathwork, or mindful speaking bring immediate relief. And it's not magic, it's vibrational physics applied to the field of memory. And this is where the most powerful practices begin. And the first could change everything today. The first key is effortless meditation, just presence. And the first practice begins with something you already know but have never truly experienced properly: meditation. But here, meditation isn't about closing your eyes and trying to banish thoughts. It's not about emptying your mind. What Thoth taught is the opposite. It's about no longer running away from it. It's about entering silence without fighting it, allowing thoughts to come and go without attachment, without guilt, without trying to control them. Because what causes suffering isn't the thought itself, it's the internal friction, the resistance, the impulse to escape every time something uncomfortable arises. True fourth-dimensional meditation begins the moment you choose to face the mirror without looking away. To sit with yourself, with everything you feel, with everything you remember, and breathe there. Thoth said, "Know thyself and you will know the secrets of time." And the only place where this happens is in the present. The present is the only point where all time folds, the only moment where past, future, and present intersect. And when you are fully there, without judgment, you access the real field, the frequency that doesn't depend on effort, but only on truth. And it is in that place that the field begins to reprogram itself, because the body senses that you are no longer trying to escape. The nervous system begins to release, the mind calms, and the field around you responds. The practice is not about stopping the thought, it is about stop the resistance, stop the chase, stop the fight against yourself. That's when the frequency shifts. But there's an invisible detail that can sabotage everything: intention. Because nothing happens if your intention is misaligned. You can sit in silence for hours, but if deep down you're trying to prove something, to heal, just to please, to become enlightened out of pride, the field doesn't respond. Because the vibration that activates the field isn't desire, it's truth, it's surrender. And this brings us to the second key: intention as frequency. Not as positive thinking, not as visualization, but as actual energetic alignment. Intention is the invisible tone behind your action. It's what your field is shouting, even if your mouth says something else. And that's why if you keep repeating phrases like, "Nothing ever works for me," "I always screw up," "Nobody understands me," you're feeding the exact frequency you're trying to transmute. It's not your fault, it's a pattern. And the pattern only changes when you start observing what you say, what you think, what you do to emit even in silence. In Hermeticism, this is called the power of the word. Thoth said, "The word is the seed of reality." Every sentence is a vibrational code. Every word charged with emotion is like an energetic command. And when you speak something powerfully, the universe listens. When you believe it, the field obeys, even if it's something negative. So, true alchemy requires breaking those sentences, replacing "I'm unlucky" with "I'm learning to vibrate differently." Changing the phrase "I can't do it" to "I'm still developing this ability." It's not about lying to yourself, it's about tuning into a new field. It's about raising your internal mercury, your mind, until it merges with the gold of pure consciousness. And that's when everything begins to vibrate more strongly. When you think in 4D, the world recognizes your signature. You can think clearly, feel deeply, and even intend with faith. But if your actions contradict all of this, the field becomes blocked. Because the universe doesn't respond to theory, it responds to coherence. It's not just intention that activates reality, it's the union of mind, word, and behavior. When everything vibrates in harmony, reality bends. This is the fourth key, and it's here where most people get stuck without realizing it, because they still believe that simply wishing or repeating affirmations is enough. But if your mouth says one thing and your heart feels another, your body is acting out of alignment. You emit interference, and the field interprets that inconsistency as vibrational instability. The Emerald Tablet teaches, "As above, so below, as within, so without." This isn't symbolic, it's literal. Your external world reflects the exact frequency of your internal organization. So if you desire prosperity but act out of fear, if you seek love but continue to sabotage yourself, if you strive for growth but continue to fuel judgment, the universe reflects that fragmented frequency back to you. This is why the fifth key comes next. Resonance. Resonance is the field that is generated when everything within you vibrates in the same tone. When thought, emotion, word, and action align like a perfect musical note. This is when reality begins to shape itself without resistance, because you stop fighting the field and begin to harmonize with it more fully. And this frequency amplifies when you connect with others who vibrate in the same field. In the Hermetic schools, this was called a vibrational choir, a group that creates a field of mutual amplification. And this is why when you surround yourself with people who live the same purpose, who speak the same inner language, manifestation accelerates, reality intensifies, and signs multiply. This is how the field recognizes what is real. Through coherence, through vibration that persists even outside of ritual, even after meditation, even in the face of chaos. And when this happens, something changes, because you no longer have to chase miracles. You become the miracle. But this transformation is complete only when your vibration begins to speak for you. When your energetic signature is so coherent, so integrated that the universe responds before you even ask. Everything you see around you now, everything that surrounds you, has been shaped by your previous vibration. And when you begin to think in 4D, something shifts and doors open. Not because the world has changed, but because you have changed. At the end of this exploration, what is revealed is not a conclusion, but the beginning of a new perspective. The awareness that reality is not a motionless stage, but a living organism that responds, breathes, and reshapes itself based on the frequencies our consciousness emits. We are not passive subjects of a preordained destiny, but cosmic artists called to impart color and rhythm to an endless symphony. Every thought we conceive, every emotion we cultivate, every word we utter, and every gesture we make does not remain confined to the invisible, but leaves a lasting impression, an energetic signature that shapes the universe and, in a mirror image, returns to us amplified. This is true alchemy, the ability to transmute the lead of wounds into gold of wisdom, to convert inertia into creation, to transform shadows into radiant presence. We are travelers of time, not prisoners of its chains. We are navigators of becoming, not shipwrecked by the tides of chance. And if we embrace the divine spark that has always dwelt within us, we can realign our inner microcosm with the breath of the macrocosm, manifesting with vibrational coherence the reality our soul yearns to experience. If this message has struck a chord with your innermost consciousness, don't just keep it to yourself. Leave a like as an act of resonance. Share the video with those you perceive as ready to remember their forgotten greatness, and subscribe to continue together on the journey toward the inexhaustible depths of awareness. I also invite you to leave a comment with a new word, a neologism that embodies the essence of your personal revelation. It could be a new syllable, a term never uttered before, a sound born from the heart and becoming a bridge between the visible and the invisible. Thus, your contribution will become part of a universal chorus that amplifies the collective vibration. With sincere gratitude, I thank you for your luminous presence. May the light of consciousness guide every step of your journey, and may your being shine as a living witness to the most sublime reality your spirit has chosen to embody. See you soon.